Something wrapped around my ankle 15 feet from shore and pulled me under. Not a cramp, not a current, not weeds, something with grip, something that tightened the harder I kicked. I was underwater for maybe 4 seconds before it let go, but those 4 seconds rewired my brain permanently. I came up gasping and thrashing, and my friends on the dock thought I was messing around. They were laughing. I swam back to shore faster than I've ever moved in water, and when I pulled myself onto the rocks, I looked down at my ankle. There were marks. Red pressure marks in a pattern that didn't match anything I could explain. Not a fish, not a snapping turtle, not a rope. Something had grabbed me, something under the surface of Lake Champlain that I never saw. And I need to tell you what happened in the 48 hours after that, because what I found makes it so much worse. I was 28. It was July of 2023. My college roommate Danny had a family cabin on the Vermont side of Lake Champlain, near Charlotte. 6 of us went up for a long weekend. I had been to the lake once before as a kid, but I didn't remember much. It's massive, over 100 miles long. Parts of it are over 400 feet deep. From the shore, it looks like an ocean. You can't see the other side in most places. The water is dark, not dirty, just dark. That deep freshwater dark where the color shifts from green to black, about 10 feet out. The kind of water where you can't see your own feet once you're waist deep. I'm not afraid of water. I grew up swimming in lakes in New Hampshire. But there's something about Champlain that felt different from the moment we arrived. The surface was calm, but underneath it you could feel movement, not waves, something else. Like the water itself was alive, restless, aware. The first day was normal. We swam off the dock, we drank beers, we grilled burgers. Nobody mentioned anything strange. But that night, sitting around the fire pit, Danny's dad, who had owned the cabin for over 20 years, told us something I wish he hadn't. He told us about Champ. I had heard the name before. It's basically Vermont's version of the Loch Ness Monster, a creature that supposedly lives in the lake. Sightings going back to the 1600s. Native Americans warned about it centuries before Europeans arrived. There's even a famous photograph from 1977 that shows what looks like a long neck and head rising out of the water. Most people treat it like a tourist gimmick. There are Champ t-shirts and keychains and bumper stickers everywhere around the lake. But Danny's dad wasn't joking. He said he had seen something twice. Once in 2009 and once in 2017, both times at dusk, both times from the dock. He said it was a dark shape just below the surface, moving slowly parallel to the shore. He said it was longer than his boat, which was 22 feet. He told us this with a straight face, and then he went to bed. Subscribe right now if you haven't already. You need to hear what happened the next day. Also hit that like button. Takes 1 second. The next afternoon, I was swimming alone. Everyone else was inside making lunch. I was floating on my back about 15 feet from the dock. The water was calm, the sun was out, I was relaxed. Then I felt something brush against my right foot, light, quick, like a fish passing by. I didn't think anything of it. Then it happened again, this time against my left calf, slower, deliberate, like something was circling. I put my feet down and treaded water. The lake was dark below me. I couldn't see anything. Then the grab happened. Something closed around my right ankle, firm, cold, muscular. It pulled me down, not violently, steadily, like it was testing my weight. I kicked hard and whatever it was tightened for a second, and then released. I went under for maybe 4 seconds before I broke the surface. I swam to shore so fast my arms were burning. When I got on the rocks, I looked at my ankle. The marks were there, 4 red lines, evenly spaced, wrapping about 3/4 of the way around my ankle. They weren't cuts, they were pressure marks, like something with long fingers or appendages had squeezed. Danny came out and I showed him. He got quiet. He said it looked like a sucker mark, like from a tentacle. I told him that was insane. He said he knew, but that's what it looked like. I didn't go back in the water. Not that day, not for the rest of the trip. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Danny's dad had said, about the shape he saw that was longer than his boat, about the centuries of sightings. I pulled out my phone and started reading. What I found made the hair on my arms stand up. In 2003, a research team from the Fauna Communications Research Institute used sonar to scan the bottom of Lake Champlain. They detected a large moving object at a depth of about 200 feet. The object was estimated to be between 20 and 30 feet long. It moved in a pattern inconsistent with any known fish species in the lake. The data was published in a scientific context but never explained. The researchers said the echolocation signals they recorded were similar to those made by a beluga whale or an orca. Neither of those animals has ever lived in Lake Champlain. I kept reading. In 2015, a kayaker near Button Bay reported being bumped from underneath, hard enough to nearly capsize. He said the impact felt like hitting a submerged log, except there was no log. The water was 30 feet deep and the bottom was sand. In 2019, a father and son fishing at dusk near Shelburne Point said something broke the surface about 50 yards from their boat. They described a dark curved shape that rose and then sank in about 3 seconds. The father said it was the size of a car hood. He said it was smooth and dark gray and moved with intention, not drifting, swimming. Over 300 documented sightings since the 1800s. Local newspapers have covered them. Television crews have investigated. The state of Vermont actually passed a resolution in 1982 protecting Champ from any harm. You don't pass a law to protect something that doesn't exist. Or maybe you do, but somebody believed strongly enough to put it in writing. Whatever lives in that lake has been there for a very long time. Longer than the cabins on its shore, longer than the roads, longer than the towns, and on a calm Tuesday afternoon in July, it grabbed my ankle and pulled me under and left marks on my skin that took 5 days to fade. I have photos of those marks. I look at them sometimes and I try to convince myself it was a fish or a piece of debris or my imagination, but I know what a fish feels like, and I know what a grip feels like. That was a grip. 4 marks, evenly spaced, wrapping around my ankle. Something held me, something decided to let go. And I will spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if it hadn't.
My husband and I saw something in Lake Erie that we have never told anyone about because we know exactly how it sounds. It sounds like 2 drunk people on a boat who saw a big fish and panicked. That's not what happened. What we saw was not a fish. It was not a wave. It was not a shadow. It was something alive, and it was bigger than our boat, and it passed directly underneath us, close enough that we could feel the water shift. If you've ever been on a small boat and felt something large move beneath you, then you already know the feeling I'm describing. Your body knows before your brain does. Your stomach drops, your hands grip the rail, and some ancient part of your nervous system that you didn't know existed screams at you to get off the water immediately. It was September of 2022. My husband and I had rented a small fishing boat on the Ohio side of Lake Erie, near Sandusky. We go every fall. It's our thing. Lake Erie is shallow compared to a lot of the Great Lakes. Average depth is only about 62 feet. But it's massive, over 9,000 square miles. And the western basin where we were fishing gets murky. The water is green-brown. Visibility is maybe 2 or 3 feet on a good day. You can't see what's below you. You just have to trust that it's fish and weeds and nothing else. For years, that trust was enough. If this story is already making your skin crawl, drop a comment. Have you ever seen something in a lake you couldn't explain? Let me know. We were anchored about a mile from shore. It was late afternoon. The sun was low. The water was calm. We had caught a few walleye and were thinking about heading in. My husband was reeling in his line when he stopped and said, "Do you feel that?" I didn't at first. Then I did. The boat was rocking, not from waves. The surface was flat. The boat was rocking from below, like something was displacing water underneath us. A slow side-to-side motion that felt intentional, like something was passing directly beneath the hull. I leaned over the side and looked down. The water was too murky to see anything deeper than a foot. But there was a shadow, a dark shape moving under the boat from front to back. Slowly. It took about 7 seconds to pass. I watched it the entire time. It was longer than the boat. Our boat was 16 feet. Whatever this was extended beyond both ends. It was maybe 4 or 5 feet below the surface. I could see the outline but no details, just a long dark mass gliding through the murky water. My husband was on the other side of the boat, and he was looking down too. He said, "Oh my God," not loud, a whisper, like he was afraid it would hear him. The shape cleared the boat and continued south. As it moved away, the rocking stopped. The water settled. We watched the surface where it had gone, and for about 3 seconds we could see a faint wake, a V-shape in the calm water trailing something just below the surface. Then it was gone. The lake was flat and still again, like nothing had happened. My husband and I looked at each other. Neither of us said anything for a long time. Then he pulled the anchor and started the engine, and we drove straight back to the marina at full speed. On the drive home, he finally said it. He said that was Bessie. I knew what he meant. Lake Erie has its own legendary creature, Lake Champ in Champlain. Sightings going back over a century, described as a snake-like creature between 20 and 40 feet long, dark gray or black, moves quickly. In 1990, a group of boaters off Cedar Point reported a 35-foot serpentine animal thrashing on the surface. They said it created a wake like a speedboat, even though there was no boat nearby. In 1993, a family on a jet ski near Kelly's Island said they were chased by something large and fast that they couldn't identify. The father said he opened the throttle all the way, and whatever was behind them kept pace for nearly a quarter mile before veering off. Multiple commercial fishermen over the decades have reported seeing unusually large shapes on their sonar, shapes that didn't match any cataloged species in the lake. One captain who had been fishing Erie for over 30 years told a local reporter in 2018 that he had seen something surface near his nets that was, quote, bigger than anything that's supposed to be in this lake, end quote. He wouldn't go on camera. He said his crew would think he'd lost his mind. I had always dismissed all of it as folklore, fishermen's tales, the kind of stories that get exaggerated every time they're retold. Stories that towns keep alive because they sell postcards and bring tourists. I don't dismiss it anymore. I felt it move under my boat. I watched its shadow pass beneath the hull for 7 seconds. I saw the wake it left on a perfectly still surface. My husband, who is the most rational person I have ever met, will not talk about it. I have brought it up 3 times since it happened, and each time he changes the subject. The only thing he has ever said about it was in the truck on the way home that day. He said, "I don't know what that was, but I know it was alive, and I know it was bigger than us. We still go fishing every fall, but we stay close to shore now, close enough that I could swim back if I had to. Although after what I saw, I'm not sure I'd ever want to be in that water again. Because I know what's underneath it now. I've seen its shadow, and shadows that big don't come from anything small."
Lake Tahoe is 1645 feet deep. That's deeper than the Empire State Building is tall. When you swim in it, the water is so clear you can see 70 feet down, and then beyond that, it's just blue. Darker and darker blue until it turns into black. You're floating above 1,600 feet of nothing. No floor you can see. No bottom you can imagine, just depth. Pure, open, terrifying depth. And somewhere in that depth, something lives that nobody has been able to identify or explain. I know because I heard it, not saw it, heard it, and the sound it made is something I have not been able to get out of my head for 2 years. I was 35. Summer of 2023. I was staying at a rental near Tahoe City on the North Shore with my brother and his wife. It was my first time at Tahoe. I grew up in the Midwest. The deepest lake I had ever been in was maybe 40 feet. Tahoe is a different animal. The water is freezing even in August. The surface temperature might be 68 degrees, but 15 feet down, it drops fast. By 50 feet, it's in the 40s. By 100 feet, it's near freezing. And the lake keeps going for another 1,500 feet below that, into permanent darkness, into cold that hasn't seen sunlight since the Ice Age. My brother loved it. He's a diver. He's been to Tahoe 4 times. He told me the clarity is unlike anything else in the world. He also told me about Tessie. Tahoe Tessie is the local legend, similar to Champ and Bessie, a large aquatic creature that has been spotted in the lake for over a century. The Washoe people who lived around the lake for thousands of years had stories about a massive serpent that lived in the deep water. European settlers reported sightings starting in the 1800s. In 2004, a retired marine biologist who lived on the shore claimed to have seen a dark, undulating shape about 60 feet long, moving just below the surface, near Cave Rock. His neighbors confirmed they saw it too. The lake is so deep and so cold that scientists have said it could theoretically support a large, undiscovered species. The pressure and temperature at the bottom create conditions where things could survive that we don't have names for yet. My brother told me all of this while we were sitting on the deck overlooking the lake. I thought he was trying to scare me. He wasn't. On our 3rd day, we rented a pontoon boat and took it out to the middle of the lake. About 2 miles from shore, the water was insanely clear. You could look over the edge and see down what felt like forever. Rocks, sand, then blue, then darker blue, then nothing. I was lying on the front of the pontoon, looking over the rail into the water, when my brother cut the engine. The boat drifted. The water went silent. No waves, no wind, nothing. Just the 3 of us, floating on a piece of aluminum above a mile of water. My brother said he wanted to try something. He had brought an underwater speaker, the kind divers use. He lowered it about 10 feet into the water and connected it to his phone. He played a low-frequency pulse, a deep, steady hum. He said researchers sometimes use sounds like this to attract marine life. He said he wanted to see if anything would respond. For about 5 minutes, nothing happened. The hum pulsed through the speaker and disappeared into the deep. Then my brother's wife said she felt something. She was sitting on the back of the boat with her feet in the water. She pulled them out fast and said the water just got cold, not gradually, suddenly, like a pocket of freezing water had risen from below. My brother checked the fish finder. The screen was showing the bottom at about 900 feet, normal. Then the reading glitched. A large return appeared on the screen at about 300 feet. It wasn't the bottom. It was something between us and the bottom. Something solid, something big. It was there for about 4 seconds, and then it dropped. 350 feet, 400, 450. It sank fast. Within 10 seconds, it was gone. The fish finder showed nothing but water again. My brother was staring at the screen. His wife was staring at the water. I was gripping the rail. Nobody spoke. Then we heard it, a sound coming from the water, not from the speaker, from the lake itself. A low vibration, so deep I felt it more than I heard it. It resonated in my chest, in my teeth, in the bones of my hands, gripping the aluminum rail. It was rhythmic, not constant. It pulsed, like breathing, like something massive was exhaling somewhere far below us, and the sound was traveling up through 900 feet of water and vibrating the hull of our boat. It lasted maybe 12 seconds. Then it stopped. The water went silent again. The cold pocket was gone. The fish finder was clear. My brother pulled the speaker out of the water. His hands were shaking. He didn't say it was nothing. He didn't say it was the boat or an echo or the speaker malfunctioning. He just started the engine and drove us back to shore without a word. None of us spoke for the entire ride. 20 minutes of engine noise and silence. His wife sat in the back with her knees pulled up to her chest. She hadn't put her feet back in the water. She wouldn't touch it. When we docked, she stepped from the boat to the pier without letting any part of her body contact the lake. That night, he sat on the deck and stared at the lake until midnight. I sat with him for a while. The lake was perfectly still. Moonlight on the surface, beautiful from a distance, terrifying when you know what's under it. At one point, I asked him what he thought it was. He didn't answer for a long time. Then he said the lake is 1645 feet deep and we've only explored a fraction of it. He said there are cave systems at the bottom that have never been mapped, underwater granite formations that create spaces the size of buildings. He said the temperature and pressure down there could sustain things we have no frame of reference for. Things that evolved in total darkness under crushing weight in water that hasn't circulated to the surface in thousands of years. He said whatever made that return on the fish finder was at 300 feet. That's deeper than most recreational divers ever go. It appeared and sank in 10 seconds, which means it moved 600 feet vertically in 10 seconds. Nothing we know of moves like that. Nothing we've cataloged. Nothing with a name. I asked him if he was going to go back. He said probably. He said the lake doesn't scare him. I told him it should, because I heard what was down there. And it wasn't the sound of something hiding. It was the sound of something that knows it doesn't have to hide. Something that has lived in that depth for longer than anyone has lived on its shore. Something that heard our speaker pulsing from a mile above it and responded. Not by fleeing, not by investigating, by answering. It heard us and it answered. And that's what keeps me awake. Not that something is down there, but that it knows we're up here, and it doesn't care. Those were 3 true stories from people who went into the water and discovered the water wasn't empty. Lake Champlain, Lake Erie, Lake Tahoe, 3 of the largest and deepest lakes in America, each one with centuries of sightings, each one with something in it that nobody has been able to explain. If you made it to the end, tell me which one got to you the most. Drop it in the comments. And if you've ever been in a lake and felt something you couldn't see, leave your story below. The most disturbing ones get featured in future videos. Subscribe if you haven't. New stories every week. Share this with anyone who's planning a lake trip this summer. They deserve to know what might be swimming underneath them. Stay safe. And the next time you're treading water in a lake and you feel something brush against your leg, don't look down. You don't want to see what's looking back up.